I told some stories before, and even though these videos don't get a lot of um, viewers, I kind of enjoy making them, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about these old stories. There's an old story about what we call Tashina Tanka. In English, that would be the ozone um, layer. And in this story, the way it goes is that when Tokala made this world, he got everything created here. Then he put his blanket around it to protect everything that he made here. And they call that blanket Tashina Tanka, his great blanket, or it's the ozone layer, be another interpretation. And he said that as long as we lived properly, that Tashina Tanka would protect life on Earth, protect the people and the plants and whatever down here on Earth. For a long time it worked like that, but then people have forgotten the things, the original instructions, the things that the Creator told us, the things that He gave to us. And so all of the bad thoughts and actions that we humans are doing is poking holes in the blanket. And now Tashina Tanka is beginning to look like a pretty ratty old blanket, and it's not able to protect us anymore, and it's our own fault. Everybody was given the same instructions when they were put here on Earth. But then what happens is that with all people, and you see it in these recent generations in this country, indigenous people seem to get to a point where they throw away their culture, their traditions, their teachings, everything, and they try to make something new, like as if they know better than what the Creator knows. When I was in college, I had several conversations with a physicist from NASA, and one of those conversations he told me that in vaults or whatever down in NASA, they have recordings from all over the country from different kind of Indians, old stories about stars and whatnot. And he brought up one story, and he said he couldn't remember where it came from, just it was some indigenous elder from somewhere in what the white people call the United States. And this old man said that in the middle of Wichakiohapi, or the Big Dipper, they said there's a black star. I think it's a black star, maybe it's a black hole. I don't remember the right terminology, but there's maybe I'll call it a black hole. And he said that originally our people came from the stars through that black hole down here onto Earth. And because the scientists at NASA had never seen anything like that inside of the Big Dipper, they said, well, that's just, that's just a made-up story, whatever, it don't mean nothing. Years later, their scientists discovered that there was a black hole or black star, whatever, in the middle of that cup part of the Big Dipper constellation. And so this man got interested in those stories, and he wondered, what else was there that we had to contribute. But the problem is that by the time a few select individuals like him became interested in indigenous knowledge and ancient indigenous sciences, most of our people had been fooled by Iktomi, by the white man, into hating ourselves and laughing off our own culture. And so the majority of that information has been lost now. But if you look for similarities rather than differences, and if you have an open mind, then you can look at that story about us coming from the stars down to here, and then compare it to a modern scientific idea that um, life began by stuff from outer space, you know, shooting down here into the earth and then going through transformations. And they say, that's how life began. I can't remember exactly how that scientific story goes, but if you look here in the hills over at that illegal homestake mine, a mile beneath the surface of the earth, they have a lab that um, looks for particles from outer space that are shot through the sky, and they travel way down deep, like sometimes more than a mile beneath the surface of the earth, and they're documenting these things and researching them. And really, that's the same thing as that old story. But modern science and the media, um, they portray certain subjects in a real um, irresponsible manner, and so people make fun of them. So when you talk about uh, life outside of this planet or the stars, then you get images of flying saucers and little green men from Mars and stuff like that, and you laugh at people. Or maybe if someone sees something, they're ashamed to say it because of the attitude that people have. There's a lot of subjects like with Ohúŋkakaŋ or the Bigfoot, same thing. You talk about that being, and it's everything is like a joke. So when you belittle, for Native people, when you belittle your own culture and your own history and your own knowledge like that, then you're missing out on a lot of information. If you keep your mind open to everything, then maybe you read something about a scientific approach and it gives you a different perspective to an indigenous story, or vice versa. If you're a scientific kind of person, and if you look at some of these native stories, then it might further your science. Because right now, our old stories are fact. Science is just in its infancy. It's just beginning. They don't really know that much. They don't really, understand that much. And they're too busy drawing lines, you know, like maybe evolution versus creationism, that kind of thing. They need to look for similarities. The old stories say that the Lakota people came from underneath the ground onto the surface of the earth from Washunia, or what the whites call Wind Cave. They've occupied it illegally, and they call it a national park over there by Hot Springs, South Dakota. And they said underneath the ground, I can't remember the name, but it's not a word that's used anymore, but it's kind of like monsters. One time we were like that. And then we evolved into Tokala, or like dinosaurs, they would say. From there, we evolved into the Teoyate, the buffalo nation, the bison. And then from there, we evolved into Ixchewichasha, or the human beings. There's a lot of similarities between all these different approaches, but people don't understand these things because everyone has a closed mind. Whether it's people who believe in old-time stories or people who believe only in science, they don't have as much information in their heads as they think they do. Those of us who believe in where we came from and are proud of where we came from, we've lost a great deal of that old knowledge. And in the modern people, the whites or the Indians who have sold out and become, conned by the white man, those people, they don't know very much, hardly anything with their modern science. Maybe if we could come together, we could understand things better. And maybe 500 years ago, if these white people hadn't been so racist and so greedy, maybe they would have listened to us and we wouldn't be where we are now in 2012, wondering if the world is going to end, at the end of this year, at midwinter, or whatever. You need to respect where you came from. Don't try to be, something different. Uh, don't be, what's that word? Don't be a poser. Close to here soon, there's going to be a white man's Sundance, I heard. Person running it, he's not Lakota. And the dancers, from what I'm told, they're all Washichus. But the Sundance isn't a European ceremony. The Creator gave us all knowledge. He gave us all a way to worship Him. That's the way that we should live. That's the only way that we can survive. So when people keep screwing around with these things, pretending like we know more than the Creator, pretending like we're above the earth and above nature, that only causes destruction. So you need to look back wherever you come from. You need to look back at the information that was given to your ancestors, and you need to reestablish your relationship with your past and your relationship with the earth. That's the only way that your family is going to survive.